see.
Hey, my JFK friends.
Hi. It's great to have all these kids here. That's great. Mr. Kennedy, I'm recording this, right? Can you tell that I'm recording this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. So I'm going to share my screen. I just want to see, because what I decided, Mr. Kennedy, is that I'm going to show the 15-minute movie again.
Okay.
Because if parents are going to be on it, then they haven't seen it. And even though the kids will see it for a second time, I think it'll be good for them to use it for
yeah, and some of our younger students haven't seen it also.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm just going to give a test right now. Tell me if the quality is okay.
Live from room 218.
Yep.
It's Friday.
Together.
When they have something as difficult.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, good. And it's not choppy or anything?
No, not at all.
Great, great. Okay, so now, Mr. Kennedy, do you recommend that I use the gallery view or the speaker view?
On your end?
Yeah.
Yeah, gallery is probably good because we don't know how many kids are going to jump on.
Right. Okay. And at some point, oh, thank you, Nina. How's your tooth, Nina?
It's better.
Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so let me just make sure that we have our team. Okay, so Stephanie, I see Stephanie, right? Stephanie Barbu?
Yep.
Okay, great. And Kevin Gaddafi?
Yep.
Okay, and Scott Levy?
I'm here.
Okay, great. And Nina is here. And Elizabeth Markov, great. Now,
Yep.
How about Victoria? Is Victoria here? Okay, Miss Lumbria, is that the way you say your name? Lumbrea?
Yeah, she should be on around 5.
Yeah, I
I'm
see.
here.
I see.
I'm Mr. Rakowski.
I see. Hi, how are you, Miss Lumbria?
How are you? Good to see
Really
you.
good to see. What was that, a cat or a dog?
Oh, that's my dog. My puppy's running around.
Good.
Milo, say hi. Oh man.
Sorry, I
So,
tried to be mine too. They're down here.
You
There
know
they
what?
are. See, they're good. They're sleeping.
That's great. Elizabeth, Elizabeth and Stephanie, if you could be so kind as when you're not speaking, if you could try to take attendance. Do you know how to do that with the, I don't even know how to do that. How do I get to the participants? Oh, I see up here, 27 participants. Do you know how to do that, Stephanie and Elizabeth?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, if you could just like type somewhere what the attendance is, that would be great. Oh, I see that. Well, let me just see. So Ali, it's great that you're here. Ariella, Brandon Cohen, Brandon Shamash, Camille Reyes Lucas, Dana Guo, Daniel. What's Daniel's last name? Anybody know? Okay, Eliana. Oh, all right. And then there's Ethan, Gabrielle, Jojo, Kevin Gaddafi, Liz Margoloff, Mr. Tomasini. I'm so glad that you're joining us. Let's see, Mila, Nathaniel, Nina, of course, Noah, Mr. Kennedy, Rose, Ryan Cho, who doesn't have to be here. I'm glad that you are. Scott Levy, one of our leaders. Sheldon, Stephanie, one of our leaders. And I think that's it, right? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is start off by saying welcome, Mr. Kennedy and the wonderful musicians and Miss Lambraya, the wonderful musicians at the Kennedy School. I hope you enjoyed watching the 15-minute movie that our concertmaster and Lincoln Center team leader, Nina Phillips, created for you. The script was written by Stephanie Barbu. The videographer for most of the Room 218 videos were shot by Kevin Gaddafi. And you also saw Jason May and Elizabeth Markoloff and Scott Levy in that movie. Let me introduce our team, and they will tell you which elementary school they attended, the instrument they play, and the grade that they are in now. The two seniors will also tell you what college they're going to in September. Stephanie Barbu.
Hello, everyone. I'm in 9th grade. I play the violin, and I attended JFK.
Thank you, Stephanie. Elizabeth Margoloff.
Hi, I am a junior. That's 11th grade. I play the viola and I went to JFK.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kevin Gaddafi.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kadavi. I'm in 11th grade, and I play the alto saxophone. I went to Saddle Rock.
And he's our tech guru. And he also, his uncle was my student a few years ago. Scott Levy.
Hi, I'm Scott Levy. I'm a senior, so that's the 12th grade, and I attended Saddle Rock.
Thank you, Scott. And Nina Phillips.
Hi, I'm Nina Phillips. I'm in 12th grade and I play the violin. I went to JFK.
Thank you. Each of our students will give a little bit of background on the pieces of the music you saw in that movie. But what I'm going to do right now, before they do that, I'm going to show the movie. It's only 15 minutes long because I know that some of the students didn't see it. And also, if there's any parents that are on this Zoom, you'll be able to see what your children saw. So this is the movie that, wait, no, where is it? That our students created. Oh, how am I going to? Okay.
This is live from room 218. It's Friday morning.
Good morning, or good afternoon, whenever your teacher is showing this to you. We are so happy to be in your classroom at North Middle with Mr. Trinkwald or at the Kennedy School with Mr. Kennedy. We, at the high school, remember our days at Saddle Rock, Baker, and Kennedy, where we were first introduced to our instruments by Dr. Wilson, Mrs. Fogarty, or Mrs. Kempton, and the appreciation for music that was enhanced by Mr. Trinkwald and Mr. Virgilio at North Middle.
At North High, you have the opportunity to continue playing your instrument in the band or orchestra classes, and as a bonus, you can register for the chamber music class, which meets every morning before school starts. This class is a wonderful introduction to the beauty of chamber and to expand your music range by playing music from Mozart and Beethoven to jazz and the Beatles.
Chamber music is one of the most intimate yet sophisticated of all genres of music performance. The subtle nonverbal dialogue, which must be maintained in the rehearsals and throughout the performance, is difficult to describe.
Chamber music has the power to enrich lives. That is why we hope that with this video, your curiosity will grow and you will further explore this nurturing world.
As part of our chamber music class, we also hold live music concerts every Friday morning. Before COVID, all the students would bring all their instruments and play in the lobby.
As you can see from our last clip, the chamber music class sometimes strays from playing classical music. In our last clip, we were playing jazz. Chamber music does not have to be classical, like Mozart or Beethoven. Musicians can play popular songs in a small group setting and it is still considered chamber music, like Yo-Yo Ma and Joshua Bell have done. That's why when our lobby music ensemble plays Duke Ellington, Bob Dylan, and the Beatles, it is still chamber music. COVID-19 restrictions force us to change our approach as concerts in the lobby are no longer feasible. This past year, we have been broadcasting live Zoom performances to the students and staff from the music room. No matter what happens, the show must go on. This year, our Friday performances also featured our own version of Jeopardy! The way this works is that one of our hosts asks a question about the composer, history, or meaning of the piece we are going to play next, and the people on Zoom either already know the answer or have to look for it online.
If you like playing your instrument, there are 3 ways you can play it. The first is playing alone, like when you practice, but that's not much fun, right? Another is playing in a big band or orchestra, like the class you are in right now. The third is playing chamber music. Now, we understand that many of you don't know what chamber music is yet. Well, chamber music arrangements are designed for each player to have their own separate, unique part, but when played simultaneously, creates beautiful pieces of art. This, we find, is the most spiritually uplifting.
Each of us has the ultimate responsibility of matching our own part with that of the other musicians in the duet, trio, or quartet. Traditionally, only the most accomplished young musicians attempt to study chamber music. The Lobby Music Project hopes to demonstrate how student instrumentalists on all levels can become engaged in playing chamber music and, more importantly, become lifelong listeners of chamber music.
Chamber music started in the Baroque period with solo and trio sonatas. Before the Baroque period, there was no difference between small and large ensembles. The Baroque period saw the beginning of an obvious difference between orchestras and chamber ensembles. Chamber music became more popular during the classical period focused in the city of Vienna. Composers like Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven began writing string quartets, piano trios, piano quartets, piano quintets, string sextets, woodwind octets, serenades, and divertimenti. Because these sonatas did not need large concert halls or churches, they could perform in people's homes. Thus, the term chamber was very fitting.
Here is an example of how we put a similar trio together.
When they have something as difficult as this passage, to try it like this. Do it twice as slowly. And also, Mizuki, you play it twice as slowly. We're at 24, 24. One, let me see, where is 24? 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Good. Now, can you go 3 and 4 and good. Can you do it more dotted? In other words, a 30-second note and then a dotted. 2, 3, 4. And now turn it around. 3 and 4 and. Now try the verse exit. 2, 3, 4. Try it once more. 3, 4. Good. Now do a 2 beat. 2, 3, 4. Now there's 2 beat. Da 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 da. 2, 3, 4. Good. Now the whole measure. 2, 3, 4. Good. Okay,
And this is the final product.
Now we asked a few students why chamber music is so meaningful to them.
Chamber music is great. It's a really nice way to start off your day, play some music right before school, whether you're online, remote, or hybrid. It's a really great way to start off your day. And honestly, doing it for 2 years has made me realize that I wish I did it before. And I love Mr. Orkowski. I love everyone who's doing it. It's something that I will definitely remember when I go up to college.
How has chamber music affected me? Well, I was already in love with the orchestra to begin with when I first discovered chamber. But when I played in my first chamber group, It was like a new awakening. Why was it so wonderful? Well, once in a while, we just click into place. There comes a fleeting moment when each of us, playing highly individual and often complicated parts, actually become an ensemble. We blend. It's an intense feeling, but it's hard to describe. There's a kind of whoosh to it, the sensation that you are part of something immensely powerful, something bigger than your own individual capability. The idea that you are part of not only what you yourself are making, but also what the others are creating. Though all our parts are unique, we make a single complex voice. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This is strangely emotional, and when it happens, I think we all feel it.
We recently had a live chamber music recital that was live streamed from our small gym at North High, with the wind and brass players finally playing with us because the gymnasium is large enough for proper social distancing. Here's some footage.
you for taking the time to listen to us. Have a great day and see you soon at the high school. This is Live from Room 218, signing off.
Okay. Thank you for watching again. And I'm just going to have our students say a little bit about the movie, just short. Stephanie, you want to just talk about the first piece that they heard?
The first piece you saw was Here Comes the Sun from the Beatles album Abbey Road, with the famous violinist Joshua Bell playing an arrangement of that popular rock song for violin and two cellos.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Elizabeth?
As mentioned on the movie, chamber music began during the Baroque period and became standardized into string quartets and piano trios during the classical period that was centered in Vienna, Austria.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kevin?
I filmed the coaching sessions of the students rehearsing the Haydn London Trio that you saw on the movie. In his day, Haydn was probably the most famous classical composer. Besides chamber music, Haydn composed solo piano pieces, concertos for many different instruments, oratorios, and over 100 symphonies.
Thank you, Kevin. And Scott?
The Mozart Serenade No. 12 was composed for wind players, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, and 2 French horns by Mozart in 1782. 5 years later, he rewrote the piece for a string quintet, having 2 violins, 2 violas, and a cello.
Thank you, Scott. And that's why we were able to play that piece for winds and strings. And then Nina.
In 1791, the last year of his life, Mozart wrote a piece for glass harmonica. That piece is played by our 2 clarinet friends. You may ask, what is a glass harmonica? It was invented by Benjamin Franklin, the American statesman, diplomat, politician, writer, printer, political philosopher, scientist, inventor, and all-around Enlightenment Renaissance man in 1761.
Thank you, Nina. And now, are there any questions from our students at Kennedy?
Guys, don't be shy. Ask any questions that you have.
I was just gonna say,
Yes.
don't be shy.
Sophia?
I have a question. If we take instruments next year, where will we and when will we like practice in school?
Oh, Mr. Kennedy, you can answer that question.
Well, Sophia, you're going into 6th grade next year, so you're going to do it at the middle school with Mr. Trinkwald.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So you'll be in the 6th grade band, which will meet, I guess it's every other day, with I think Mr. Virgilio and Mr.
Right.
And then Mr.
Okay.
And then Mr. Trinkwell will be your teacher in 7th and 8th grade. But thank you for asking, Sophia.
Okay. You're welcome.
There's some hands raised, Mr. Rakowski, if you want to.
Oh, Brandon Shamash.
Okay. So, what I was saying for the question is that is there any changes of the COVID-19 issue for the concert? Is there any changes or no?
Well, that's a really good question, Brandon. This year, we did not play any live concerts with an audience. So the concert that you saw where students stood up at the end of the piece and took a bow was silent because there was no audience. It was being live streamed on YouTube so that the parents and teachers and friends could watch it on YouTube. So this year we did not have any live performances with an audience, but we really hope things are going to be back to normal next year. Right, Ms. Lambraya and Mr. Kennedy?
Okay.
Yes.
Also one more thing. Yeah, also one more thing. I think I forgot about
Brandon.
I think a better way is to do like a person like holds the camera like in the auditorium and then they play it at it in the Zoom. So that's one camera. So they all face it. So everyone's unmuted and no one ask questions until the end, because then they'll just only share that screen.
All right, well, thank you, Brandon. Yeah, we're hoping, thanks to Kevin Gaddafi and thanks to Mr. Tomasini, we're going to get some really good equipment to do a better job next year. Eliana, did you have a question?
Yeah. So, what was the first type of instrument? When I say that, I mean like woodwind, string. Which type of instrument was first played?
Well, that's a really good question. First of all, the only reason that we know that music existed before there was recording devices was that there in caves there were pictures of instruments. Also in literature, there were stories about musicians playing instruments, and we actually found instruments from thousands and thousands of years ago. But we don't really know when it got started, but probably the first instrument was the voice, because when someone was feeling a tremendous amount of joy, they would be laughing or screaming with delight, or if they were in so much pain because they lost someone, they would cry, and when they would sustain the tone, that was the beginning of music. So we don't know when that happened, but it was probably the instrument was the voice. But that's a really good question, Eliana. Nathaniel, do you have yes?
Just wanted to follow up on that.
Please do, Nina.
In addition to the voice, like percussion was probably one of the earliest instruments, because like people could just like hit surfaces and make music. But what some scholars refer to as the earliest musical instrument found was the flute, and it was estimated to first come into existence between 67 to 37,000 years ago. So
wow,
it's been a while since the flute has been around.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Nina. So I forgot who I called on before. Eliana, did I already call on you?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I put my hand down.
Was that Paula? You want to ask a question, Paula?
No, I'm sorry I came late. It's because I just need to do something with my mom, and that's why I came late.
Okay, Jojo Ohebshalom, do you have a question?
So, how many concerts do you think we're gonna do next year?
What grade are you in, Jojo?
I'm gonna go into 4th next year. Right now,
okay.
I'm in 3rd.
So Ms. Lombria and Mr. Kennedy can answer that question.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of context to Mr. Rakowski, as a reminder to all North High friends here for joining us, at JFK this year, we were not able to play instruments. It was temporarily, we had to hit pause on our instrumental music program. So a lot of the excitement and the questions that you're hearing from our wonderful students, there's a lot of anticipation building right now. And we're very excited that right now, band and orchestra and chorus will all be back in our schools next year. So I know there are a lot of questions about that, just for some context for you all. But usually in 4th grade, we have a winter concert and a spring concert, depending on Mr. Kennedy and I are still finishing some of the details. But we will definitely have some sort of a concert next year. So get ready.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Thank you.
So guys, when you're thinking about your questions, think about the video that Mr. Rakowski just showed us and the way that the high school musicians were able to play together, sometimes with Mr. Rakowski leading them and sometimes during rehearsals and practices, and try to think of some questions you might have about that and, the last 15 minutes of what we just watched.
Gabrielle Chavverdi, you have a question?
So what if next year I'm gonna be in 4th grade? I'm gonna be in 4th grade. And what if the concert gets canceled because of the COVID situation?
So right now, Gabrielle, I love the enthusiasm. I know you're so excited, and Mr. Kennedy and I are super excited for next year. Believe me. If you have any questions specifically about like 4th grade music, 5th grade music, you can always ask us that during music, okay, or tomorrow morning when we see you at Arrival. But right now, I want you guys, what Mr. Kennedy just said, think about, while we have everyone here from North High School and Mr. Rakowski here, okay, we just want to make sure that we're really thinking about some other questions. While you guys are watching the video, some of you brought up some really great points, and you asked about the kind of music that they played. And Mr. Rakowski, a lot of us were surprised and really excited to see that you play a wide variety of music. So I know some of the students were asking about, the difference between playing the Beatles and playing, some of the classical things that we heard and how that kind of works all together. So boys and girls, think about some of those questions that we talked about. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Lambraya. Let's see. Nathaniel, do you have a question, Nathaniel?
What was the first instrument made?
That's a hard question. It could, like Nina said, it could have been a percussion instrument, or a flute. Perhaps maybe when a hollow tree trunk or a hollow branch had holes in it drilled in by a woodpecker, and then when the wind blew into it, it created a tone. So that could have been the first instrument, but we really don't know. I mean, I've been around a long time, but not that long.
Mr. Rakowski, I have a question.
Okay.
How do you figure out your program for your chamber concerts? Because there's so much chamber music that you expose your students to. So how do you pick the pieces?
Well, it evolved over all the years that I've been in Great Neck, and that we started the lobby music. See, because in the band classes, and I mentioned this before, in the band classes, for the first quarter of the year, the first 10 weeks, we work on wind ensemble literature every year, so that, well, because Mr. Kennedy was with me oh no, you were not with me in the fall semester. But so what we do, the wind players go through all the wind pieces by Holst and Vaughan Williams and Granger and Sousa, and that while the orchestra goes through all 9 symphonies of Beethoven. And then after that, we start working on the winter concert music. And then in the spring, we take up Bernstein, West Side Story, symphonic variations. I think that's an important thing. Every year we do that in the Rite of Spring. Now, so with the chamber group, I want them to be exposed to jazz and contemporary music when I was younger, because I think those jazz and rock and roll, especially the really serious rock and roll music that the Beatles produced, and also the folk singers that we do for Martin Luther King weekend. And what we're doing this week is music from the 1960s, the revolutionary music, as well as the music from Woodstock. So I think about my own type of music that I love to listen to and play, and I just make my students play it so that they learn it. And do all my students love Romeo and Juliet the way Scott Levy does, or Finlandia the way Nina loves it? I don't know, but at least they're exposed to it and they appreciate it. Then they can decide what they're going to do after that. But I really like it when I hear from a student 10 years down the road, wow, my friends were listening to Abbey Road and I knew all the songs from it. It's like really cool. So same thing with Beethoven and all that. But thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for asking that question. And I see Dr. Levy is on our Zoom. Thank you very much. Dr. Levy is the department head at North High School. And she was also involved in the Links Etc. project. Let's see, are there anyone hands raised? Brandon has another question. Brandon?
This is a question for Mrs. Kennedy. So I want you to listen.
I'm listening, buddy.
Okay. Did you saw the Google Classroom comment I did?
I have. If you posted something recently, no, I have not.
Yeah, it was like this. It was the one like I want to change my instruments.
Brendan, we could talk about this tomorrow in school. Let's talk about chamber music a little bit. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll find you tomorrow, Brandon. How about we get a question from Jonathan?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I just have a quick question for Mrs. Lambrea. For the
Can you ask me tomorrow about this? I just want to make sure the North High School students have a chance to answer your other questions, but okay? I'll come find you tomorrow morning, I promise. Okay?
Brandon, on me.
Do you have another question, Jonathan?
No, I'm okay.
No? Well, Jonathan really likes, Mr. Rakowski, a lot of rock music, and we were talking about how different genres of music, how some might be more, suited for chamber music, and how some, even though we enjoy listening to it, separately,
Right.
that maybe it wouldn't transition as well. So I guess we were talking about how you kind of arrange pop music to be appropriate for a chamber setting.
Well,
So that's a question.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Lambria. First of all, I give the music, the piano vocal scores, and the violinists and flutists, when the flutes are able to play the melody. The cellists and the bassoonists, they play the bass clef, and the clarinets have to, and the saxophones, they have to transpose. And what I tried to ask them to do when they were able to play, because this year the clarinets and all the wind instruments did not play in room 218. But when we were in the lobby, I would have them play harmony, which is usually in the piano part, or even play the top part of the bass clef. So that's the way we do it. And sometimes, well, like if we do Bruce Springsteen, I don't know if that'll work with our ensemble, but most of it does, because a lot of rock music is very melodic, and the harmonic progressions are very much like classical. Very briefly, the history of Western music was such that once the 20th century came and music became very dissonant and non-tonal, atonal, that's when jazz came out and became popular, because it brought back tonality and consonant harmonies. And then once jazz started going the same way that classical did in the early 20th century, in the 1950s, after bebop, free jazz, it got so wild that it was just natural that a new style would come out, and that was rock and roll with Bill Haley and the Comets and Elvis Presley. And so that's my theory of why jazz began when it did, and why rock and roll began when it did.
Thank you for answering that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Mr. Rakowski.
Yes, who's that?
That's me, Brazen. I have a question for the high school students. How long does it normally take for you guys to perform a concert, and how long do you practice?
Nina, do you want to answer that? Or Scott?
I can answer. Our actual concert, like the duration of the concert, usually lasts about an hour and a half. Am I wrong?
That's about right.
Yeah. And to prepare for a concert, we have our classes every day for a whole semester. So that's like half of the year that we're playing the music to prepare for the concert, more or less. And every day we're encouraged to go home and.
I think I forgot it, man.
Tomorrow, bring it home, okay?
Okay.
Don't forget. Oh, wait, it's right here. It's here.
Brandon, can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I couldn't tell what to do. Yeah, that was really good, Nina. Nina has played in outside ensembles where they don't meet every day during the school day. You were in Manus, where you just rehearsed on Saturdays, and then you were in Mayo, where you just rehearsed, what, Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights or something?
Yeah,
Do you want to
Tuesday.
talk about that? Because maybe our future musicians at Kennedy might be interested in doing music on the outside the way you have.
Yeah. So as Rakowski has mentioned, I've been in other orchestras outside of school. When I was your age, I was in the Children's Orchestra Society, which met on Sundays, I think. And then when I got to middle school, I was in the Metropolitan Youth Orchestra, and they do take auditions for younger people. So like when you guys are like entering middle school, you can consider that if you want. And basically, these kinds of orchestras meet once a week, and they have about 3 concerts a year, and they give you music to practice at home, and they have like 2-hour rehearsals per week to rehearse as an orchestra. And it's been an enriching experience for me as a violinist. And I know a lot of people also who play different instruments and participate in these things, and they really enjoy it. Have a lot of friends going to conservatories to study music after high school. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you. I also have another question. Which instrument do you think is harder, saxophone or violin? Or does that depend on what piece of music you play?
Oh, very smart question. Scott, do you want to answer that? Because you don't play the violin, but you play the saxophone and the guitar.
Well, I play the violin and Nina plays, I play the saxophone and Nina plays the violin. But, well, I think it definitely depends on what song you play. However, the violin is totally harder.
You have to also remember that they're completely different instruments. Like you'll find violin in a lot more like traditionally orchestral pieces, and the saxophone was invented later. So it doesn't have like a direct part in a lot of earlier classical music, and it's used a lot more for jazz. And if you're into improvisation and stuff like that, then that's like mainly what the saxophone is seen as. And like it can get hard, but yeah.
I just like to say that starting an instrument is one thing, because they say that starting the flute is really hard because it takes a long time to get a sound out of the flute. And with the saxophone, you put the reed on, and then once you start blowing, the sounds come out. But to master any instrument, they're all difficult to master. So that's why when you say which is a harder instrument, which is a hard instrument to start, that's one thing. But then which is the harder instrument to master? I think they all are.
I was just having a conversation with Miss Lambrea about this too. Whenever I teach my 4th graders flute, like you said in the beginning, it's a little tricky, but that's just to get a sound. And then by the time they get to 5th grade, the learning curve is crazy because they're a little bit further along than some of my other beginner band students.
Yeah, I think it's when you have an instrument that is harder to start, once you get going, then all of a sudden you don't mind practicing because you know that you're making great strides.
Yeah, you just take off.
Yeah. Okay, Brandon, you have another question, Brandon?
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Brendan Cohen.
Yes, Brandon Cohen, go ahead.
So I have a question. So what time will we be playing the instrument at school?
Mr. Rakowski, what time do you do your chamber music class?
Oh, at the high school. It was okay. At the high school, the chamber music starts at 7:20 in the morning, and those students have to be in one of the other classes, so that then period 2 is symphonic band, period 4. So it's every one of our classes meets every single day, and the chamber music class is an extra class that the students take, and that's before school starts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Jonathan, you have a question?
Yes, I actually have a question for Mr. Rakowski.
Yes.
What is your favorite rock band.
What is my favorite rock band?
Yeah,
I would say the Beatles.
mine is Kiss.
Oh, Kiss. Well, that's good. You're more advanced than I am.
Jonathan's a great drum set player, so when he gets to high school, your
Yeah.
lobby music is going to have a killer drummer.
That sounds good to me.
You know what, Mr. Rakowski, I'm going to jump in there. We were talking in one of our fourth grade classes today about how, to juggle music with, many of the other activities and school work and other classes that students have. And I know some of the fifth graders too were thinking about moving forward and how to balance that. So I would love to hear maybe if some of the high school students can kind of weigh in and any advice you may have for, our younger musicians on how to manage everything and maybe what's worked for you and any advice you have with practicing and balancing.
Elizabeth, how about if you answer that question? Because I know that you're so involved in so many different things. How do you balance music with everything that you're doing?
Well, that's a great question. So you really have to, as younger students, it's really important that you start building like good scheduling habits. That is like making, like writing on your calendar, but making sure that you spend maybe like, it doesn't have to be a long time. It can be maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. Mr. Rakowski says in class, like, you don't have to spend like an hour or two or however many hours, like so many hours practicing your instrument for you to be good. But if you practice just a little bit, maybe like 5 or maybe even 10 minutes a day, you're going to get somewhere. And that is really important as a musician, to keep practicing every day, as Mr. Rakowski always says in class.
Thank you, Liz. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to that? You're a freshman, so that you're new in the high school. Well, you're almost finished with your first year, but you're the closest in age to all these Kennedy students.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not how long you practice, it's how the quality of the practice that you put in. Because you can spend 10 minutes practicing and actually dedicating and concentrating, or you could spend an hour just not focusing and skimming over the music. So it's how much you put into that practice, even if it's just 10 minutes a day.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Kevin, do you want to add anything? I know you're busy tomorrow. You have a big production with your techno skills at school. But
Yes.
how do you balance practicing with everything else that you have to do?
I try to have long stretches of practicing when I don't have something to do. So it's unlikely that I'll be practicing every day of the week. Yet on weekends, I can carve out, an hour or two of my time and just dedicate it to practicing and really get in the zone. And I think, the further I get into that zone, the more effective my practicing is.
Thank you, Kevin. That was really good question, Ms. Lambraya. Paula, you have a question?
Mostly one of my brother has an instrument and he practices every day and every week in the weekends, and I'm interested if you can do that when you're in fourth grade when you get your instrument.
Yes, you can practice every single day in fourth grade, and I encourage
Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah. Let me just say this one thing, because it's 10 to 6 now, and I know that your parents are probably waiting for you to have dinner. But I just want to say, I want to thank everybody for being here, Mr. Kennedy, Ms. Lambraya, Nina and Scott and Elizabeth and Jason and Stephanie and Jason not here, Kevin, and thank you all, and Dr. Levy and Mr. Tomasini. Do you want to say anything, Mr. Tomasini? He's the head of this whole operation right now, and he's a well-known, famous composer of contemporary music. There you see, not all composers are Beethoven and Mozart, but Mr. Tomasini is a living composer.
Thank you, Mr. Rakowski, for that very kind introduction. It's so great to be here with all of you guys. I'm speaking to you from Lincoln Center, where I work at the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, who has been working with this wonderful team from Great Neck North High School since February, and developing this project and how to speak to all of you today. So it's been a real pleasure to work with everybody, and I'm really excited about all these great questions about music, about instruments, about chamber music. So I'm really thrilled to see everybody so excited about it. And I'm sure you guys are all looking forward to playing in person again soon, right? So yeah, absolutely great to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasini.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rakowski, and all the North High students and Mr. Tomasini and Ms. Lambrea. You guys, this was a fun 50 minutes of chamber music questions.
Yes, let's do it again sometime. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much for including us. This was an amazing opportunity. All of you, thank you.
All right, we should do this again in the fall.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, everybody have a good dinner, and our team will be back tomorrow with Mr. Trinkholt and the North Middle students. So have a good night. And chamber music is at 7:30 tomorrow, and we're doing rock and roll music of the 1960s. Bob Dylan, Carole King. Okay.
Awesome.
Carole King is my favorite. I'll have to tune in for that.
Oh yeah. We'll be doing that on Friday morning.
Awesome.
Okay.
Love
all right.
to hear it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay. Have a good night, everybody, and see you all soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.